started. You're lucky, Nasa, you get the day off. Well, you both get the day off because I'm not going to train with you and you get to be the Uke. What we really want to focus on when we're in the wrestling position is covering all of our defenses first before we make any attempt of offense. If I don't have any defensive hands in place, I got no down blocks, I just come up and try and grab my guy, he can always get underneath, yeah, exactly, and start to get underneath. He can start to get underneath my elbows. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Jesus Christ. Good, eh? You haven't wrestled a day in your life. They can always attach to our legs and to our hips and to our torso. Essentially what you want to do in the stand-up position is get rid of all of their defenses and then attach to their torso via underhooks, via overhooks, or you want to attach to their legs and their hips via body locks or single legs or double legs or some sort of variation. So we got to make sure that we can stop him from doing that, and we got to make sure that we can get rid of his defenses at the same time to start to attach ourselves to those points. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a habit of always matching our eye line level. So we're going to go eyebrow to eyebrow. If Rich does nothing and doesn't match my eyebrow to eyebrow, I've now got access to the legs, to the hips, everything like that. So same vice versa for me to him. So if he goes down and tries to reach for my hips and all I do, I don't do anything else, I just go eyebrow to eyebrow. If he tries to reach me now in any sort of fashion, where my legs or my hips or my arms, it's not going to be very effective. Second thing I want to do is I always want to have my elbows glued in to some degree. Now we're going to break this rule when we start to use the down blocking hand, but at least I'm not having my arm out wide like this. Sometimes you see people, they get into this position, they start to open up their elbows like this and reach, and this gives him a pretty clear underhook to start to get a dominant position on me, and I'm going to now have to be in a reactive position. So when I am reaching at any point, I'm going to keep my elbows in nice and tight. The angle of his torso that he's going to have to create to start to make this an underhook now, as opposed to this, is significantly different. This is going to be a lot harder. So if he has his elbow out like this, all I have to do is cut up underneath. If he has his elbow nice and tight, there's no space for me to do that. Even if he reaches up to my shoulder, I'm not going to be able to turn my body all the way down 90 degrees without compromising myself, then get underneath here and get to a good position. So it's just not going to work. The second thing, the third thing we're going to do is we're only ever going to reach with our back hand. So elbow's nice and tight, but we're not going to reach with our front hand. If we reach with our front hand, even with an elbow nice and tight, yeah, he's only one step away from bumping this out of the way, and my lead leg is exposed. If I leave my lead leg exposed, he's always got access underneath this arm to start to go to single legs and start to attach to my hips and everything like that. So eyebrow to eyebrow, we've got our elbows in nice and tight. We're going to leave this hand forwards of our leg. So even if he does go try to attach to that leg, I've always got a down block in place where I can start to reactively take my legs and hips back and away. If I don't have the down block in and he grabs a single leg and I try and sprawl back, his grip is usually going to be sufficient to stop me from running away. If I've got my elbow in the way and he goes to try and reach my legs, he's only ever going to get a very weak grip, and that's going to start to perform most of the defense on the left from my shoulder, and I'm always going to be able to get my leg back out and away. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to match our eyebrow to eyebrow level. Our training partner in front of us is going to try and get into our legs, and we're just going to continue to keep our down blocks in place. We're going to continue to keep our eye line in place. Don't try and headbutt each other, but we're just going to continually move in, reach with our rear hand, and then circle around. We're going to keep eyebrow level and just continually move through a couple of those patterns, and then we'll start to work some offense. It's not ideal nor productive to continue in a defensive manner the entire time. So it's all well and good that I'll teach you guys how to defend potential attacks from them, but we've got to turn them into offense immediately. A great way to do this is when they do try and attempt a shot, we've done all the right things. We've kept our eye line level, we've kept our down blocking in place. He's trying to reach with his outside hand to get towards my leg. What we can start to do is, before this gets into a deep single, is we can start to capitalize on the big space between his armpit and his tricep here, and then start to perform a drag. Don't worry too much about the grip on the outside of your knee. You'll be able to replace this, you'll be able to remove this pretty easily by when you start to drag them through and get to the far hip. So if we're playing around here, we've got eye line level, I'm reaching with my rear hand, he starts to go for a shot. I've got my down blocking hand in place. I'm going to start to shoot my leg back if I have to. And then once I've got into this position, I'm going to reach up all the way into the armpit. I'm not reaching at the elbow. The elbow is quite a weak drag. And if I do try and pull it here, there's not a lot of there's not a lot of grip for when he straightens his arm. My hand will just come back and down. If I've got it right in the back of his armpit here, I'm connected to his shoulder joint, so I can move his body quite easily. Once I get this arm out of the way, I'm going to take my head and my chin over the spine here, and it's a race for the far hip. If I just keep my hand in this position, I'm not going to be able to take him down until I get to here. He's going to notice this. He's going to probably try and, continue to turn the corner. As long as I've got this far hip, I can stay with him. If I don't have the far hip, maybe he redrags me, or maybe he gets to my back. So we've got all the right postures in place. He goes to start to reach for a single leg. I keep my down block in place. I shoot my left leg back. I start to grab on the outside of his arm here, right up near the armpit, and I start to perform a drag. I've got my chin over the top of his spine, and I've got my my cupping grip on the far side inside his hip. Once I get to this position, how are we going to finish the takedown? I can always go to a body lock if I have to, but I'm not always necessarily going to have to. I'll keep these grips where I've got them. I'm going to start to take him over where he has no post. So once I maintain this arm drag grip, he's not going to be able to post on his hand. If I don't have the grip, he can easily start to just 4-point, and I'm not going to be able to take him down. But if I have this drag grip, I'm going to circle in a spiral fashion, taking him over that post, getting him down into a 4-point position, or maybe turtle. And once I'm in here, I'm behind both elbows, and I keep him down on the floor. So we're turning defensive measures straight into offense. So I've got my down block in place. I start to sprawl my leg back. I notice that there's an arm drag to be had here. I start to take it all the way in the top of the armpit. I take my chin over the spine, so I face across him. I go for the far hip, and now that I've got this, I take him over his post, or where he doesn't have a post, and he falls straight to the ground. He might end up in this position. He might end up in a 4-point position. He might end up in turtle, but this is just a broken down turtle anyway. So now we've gone from defense straight into an offensive position. Let's give that a go. So now we'll start to be a little bit more proactive rather than reactive for our offense. And what we're going to start to do is configure a system of tying up their hands so that, again, they can't perform any offense on us, but while we're moving through our offense. So we've got our are you right? You're puffing something.
Sorry,
Jesus Christ.
This is bad.
You used to be in good condition. Oh my God. What have you done to him, NASA? Holy shit. Anyway, so we've got our down blocking hand in place. We've got a nice posture. We're not in this bolt upright judo posture. This will get our legs entered upon quite easily. We're slightly bent over at the hip. We also don't want to be too excessive where we're in a wrestling posture. Jiu-jitsu is a lot long. Yeah, exactly. You can reach my head. And jiu-jitsu is a lot longer of a match than in wrestling, and you'll probably wear your lower back out. If you could hold this, it would probably be advantageous, but I don't think it's necessarily going to happen. So bent over slightly, we've got our down blocking hand in place, and we're going to start to reach with our rear hand. And what we want to achieve here is we want to get to the back of the neck, and we want some sort of inside tie, or maybe even some sort of grip over the wrist. So we're going to be reaching for these. It's not always going to be that easy to gain contact to these. They're going to strip, and they're going to try and stop up. Yeah, exactly. They're going to start to move into their own collar ties. And once they do, we're in a pretty good position to start to get on the inside of these, or start to use this against him. So one of the things I like to do the most is start to continually reach for the inside position back on their collar tie, and then transfer my collar tie to an inside bicep tie. So now I've got double inside position, and I didn't have to work very hard for it. I've also, to a certain degree, bumped his collar tie off the back of my neck, because now I've got an inside frame on the inside of his, and I've converted his to an over tie. Once I'm in this position, I've got all the access to the underhooks, I've got all the access to the legs if I'd like, and it's just about taking, you're right, it's just about choosing what I want to go to. So initially, it's eyebrow to eyebrow, it's down blocking hand in place, it's reaching for the back with the rear hand towards his head. Notice how my elbow's in nice and tight. I haven't got it flared to an excessive degree, giving him an advantage. He wants to take a collar tie on me, because that's typically how people will respond. And so I let him take the bait. I take my hand over the far side, and then I start to go inside bicep tie. If he tries to reach for any part of me with his left hand, I've got an inside bicep tie. It's going to be extremely difficult. If he manages to pummel off of this, I can always glue my elbow to my ribs, and I can reattach whenever I want. It's not a difficult thing to conceive of. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to utilize my left hand on this side for the collar tie, noticing that if I've got him in an over tie, he's breaking our initial rule of having a down blocking hand in place. If he has his left foot in front instead of his right foot, I'm not just going to reach down because he has the same advantage on me. Well, he has the same advantage with a bicep tie. It's going to be very difficult for me to be able to make this happen just because we're both in this basically 50-50 position. Even though I have the inside tie and he has an outside tie, if I reach, I'm not going to be able to get there. So if he has his left leg forwards, in the off chance that he does, I'm going to snap him forwards and start to get this leg moving towards me, of which now I can start to go underneath here and attach to an outside single. Once I get to this position, I'm using my my temple in his chest to start to drive him backwards. I don't want the back of my head presented to him at all. He's going to be able to put me in front headlocks. He's going to stuff my head. He's going to sprawl. Exactly right. It's not going to be very advantageous for me. So we get to here. I've got his right leg forward this time. I'm going to go down underneath and get my temple into his chest. I've got nice high posture. Once I'm in this position, we're not going to stay here for very long. This is where you'll burn out your arms if you're just trying to hold this leg up. What we're going to do is we're going to take our outside hand, we're going to switch elbow deep, I'm going to take a far side tight waist. Once I've got this position, I'm going to lift his leg forwards in front of me as I start to knee cut down in the middle. Notice I'm not going to be doing this on the side of his knee. It's not going to be a huge problem until his foot touches the ground of where I hurt my training partner, but this is just poor technique anyhow. You want to be facing the same direction. So what I'm going to do is I'll lift this at the same time as I cut my elbow back, and I use my ear in his chest to start to take him back down and around. This is pretty effortless. It's a pretty high velocity technique for low effort, and it's a very, very good option once you get to a single leg. So down blocking hand in place, I go inside tie with my elbow in to the back of the head. He follows up to the back of my head. I go inside and then to the bicep. I'm not going to reach down for this single leg because his arm's going to block me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move him forwards, go down, elbow deep, and I'm going to start to use my ear in his chest or my temple in his chest to make sure that I've got good posture. I'm not going to stay here for very long. Take the outside hand, go elbow deep, far side tight waist. I'm going to take a step, cut him back and behind as I pull my elbow down to the floor, and he comes with me. Let's give that a go. So these are what some of you guys have realized is what Rich just said, is that these are kind of low effort, high velocity moves. So we're not really burning a ton of energy, and they're not exactly high risk, high reward. They're actually kind of low risk, low reward. And that's what we want to build our wrestling game around, is because if our wrestling game is only around high effort, high reward techniques, like say body lock throws, or the irony is that that's basically all I do. You'll end up burning yourself out quite a fair bit. And the wrestling in the stand-up position is at least the most fatigue inducing. And if you don't do a good job at that, over a 10-minute match, you're going to be extremely tired. So when it does get to the floor, your techniques won't be as snappy. You won't have as much velocity on your techniques, and you won't be as good in a fatigued state. So we've got to make sure that we're doing this in a systematic fashion. So another long range sort of takedown set where we're not getting to inside ties or inside position is where we're going to start to go palms down to the floor. And typically what ends up happening is that your partner, your opponent, will take a bottom hand position, which is good for us. I'll start to do this. Yeah, good job. You have calluses. Do you lift weights?
Better believe it, mate.
Wow, is that a weightlifting physique? So when you come out like this, the typical response is that your training partner will come out in the opposite fashion. Yeah, like this, and then you'll tie up and you'll do this, and then you'll start to waltz. If you come out like this, you're kind of edging your bets to get top hand position, which is great for us. It's not always going to happen. Most of the time they're going to come out in a neutral position. So we can try and force it like this, but it won't always happen. So what we can do to edge our bets and make sure that we get at least one top hand position is start to go asymmetrical grips, where we go over the hands and over the wrist in different formats. The reason why this is so difficult to deal with is because now he's got two weak parts of the grip, one facing the outside and one facing the inside. So to start to decide which one to strip is actually kind of difficult. If I go both like this, then he's got an easy methodology of stripping grips. He just turns both wrists to the inside and strips. If I go both like this, they're both to the outside. If I change it and go one to one, now what? You see, now he has to start to employ different techniques and start to use his other hand. He doesn't feel comfortable just stripping them one or the other. And this gives me a pretty good advantage. They're called asymmetrical grips. And this for whatever reason, when this happens to you in training, give it a go, do this, and you go, oh, I know the solution. I know the solution, so easy. it does discombobulate you a little bit. It starts to make you think. And in that moment of thinking, you are going to have a moment for your opponent to start to get an advantage. So we go asymmetrical grips, and immediately while they're stuck in this position where they have no idea what's going on, like you do, we're going to start to perform an arm drag, and then we're going to follow it up with sasai. So the thumb that's pointing down, not the thumb that's pointing up, I'm going to start to bring that towards my center line as I start to reach up into the armpit for the drag. And notice that we're in a little bit further distance this time. So it's not going to be as easy for me to come around the corner and reach this hip, because he'll always be able to turn. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to start to use a judo technique called sasai. And as we drag him across our body, I'm going to reach with the instep of my foot towards his shin or towards the base of his ankle, and then pull him forwards this direction. What that'll do is it'll stop his far hip from being able to turn the corner with me. It'll block his near side leg, and it'll start to stumble him enough that I can grab a contact to this far side hip. And then I can start to go into my body lock techniques. I can start to put him down to the floor. I'm in a pretty good spot here. So again, there's a couple of different hand postures you can start to take. Most people will come out like this. Some people will come out like this. We can start to circumvent that by going asymmetrical grips and either grab the wrists, but asymmetrical grips is the best variation, because if I grab like this, he'll strip easily. If I grab like this, he'll strip easily. If I grab one over the other, for some reason, it's just very difficult to deal with. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to pull this down towards our center line. I'm going to perform the initial drag here. I realize that this is actually pretty far distance for me to start to go towards. So I'm going to take my right foot in this instance and go towards the sasai on the far leg and getting towards my body lock. So one more time. We come out, we're playing away, we go asymmetrical grips. We got one on the other one. We're always going to go towards we're always going to go towards the thumb down grip rather than the thumb up grip. I'm even fucking myself up with these. So thumb down grip is the side we're going to drag. We're going to start to perform the drag by going into the back of the armpit. We're going to reach for the front of his shin with our foot. He's going to stumble forwards. We'll gain access to that far hip, and then we'll upgrade to a rear body lock. Let's give that a go.